Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, hi, I'm Debbie and I make art videos. So today I have a box of pencil crayons to review and we'll have a little play around with. So Arrtx reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to try their 126 set of pencil crayons. I haven't had a new set since I was a teenager, so this is really exciting. So I'm excited to swatch all the colors with you and give this a go. So let's get into it. The colors come in this really nice box, and bonus ASMRing, but there's a little foam core down there and they fit in there really nicely, snug and tight. The pencils are marked with a number, and on the back of the case you can verify all the numbers that are in the box, but the name of the pencil is also written on the pencil itself. I got sent along a multimedia sketchbook along with the pencils, so I think we'll swatch in here and do a little artwork. It's a really nice craft paper cover, and it has this little embossed little silhouette in there that's really cute. There is an envelope sleeve on the inside, and the paper is bound with a kind of ribbon, and it says that it folds open flat, and I can verify that. I just flipped the sketchbook open on a random piece of paper and it seems to stay flat. This paper is 180 GSM and there are 60 sheets in the sketchbook. This combination is very matchy-matchy and the aesthetics are, spot on. Once I started swatching, I was happily surprised at how creamy these pencils are. It's a very nice texture and very little crumbling on the paper. My one complaint in the color selection would be that there are several colors that are very, very close in value, and even though the shade is slightly different, that one is slightly warmer or slightly cooler, because the value is so close, they seem like they're very much the same color. So I think that if that was tweaked slightly, that either one of those two shades was warmer or darker slightly, just to make it seem like you're not getting doubles, that might be an improvement. But if you're doing really subtle painting type of portraits, this might be a bonus for you. I was also happy to see that there are a few neon colors in this collection. I love neon, especially with pencil crayons, and I use it a lot when I'm doing outlining, and I usually use pencil crayons for drawing, and so I really like to add spots of neon color. It's a really nice range of colors and they laid beautifully on this paper. There are definitely some colors that I don't own, and I was happy to fill in the gaps in my own collection with these colors. Some really nice olive greens and some pale blues that I think will be very useful. This past month I've been doing an art challenge over on Instagram, and it's a little D&D campaign that I wrote a little story about, and I created a few little characters, and I thought I would try doing this little Robin in a pencil crayon version. So I used transfer paper, graphite transfer paper. I found an old roll that I had tucked away in a box, and if you don't know what it is, it's basically just a roll of paper that's covered in graphite, and you can use it to transfer drawings. So this is the character that I transferred into the Arrtx multimedia sketchbook, and it has a little bit of a texture to it, so I imagine the pencil will grip well, but I'm not experienced with what paper works best with pencil crayon, but we're going to give this a shot. And then I also printed out another one of my art challenge pictures. I thought we would try like a coloring page on just regular photocopy paper. And this is really nostalgic to me. This is something that I loved to do as a kid, to color with pencil crayons on photocopy paper. I don't know, it's just one of those things. So gonna relive childhood. So I'm just gonna select the colors of this little bird and put them over here so they're easy access, and then we'll give this little bird a shot. I've been finding it useful to put a little tray beside my workstation when I'm using pencil crayons. It helps me to stay focused on the colors that I am using so I don't get carried away, and it helps them from rolling off the table. These are the colors that I end up selecting for the robin. And there is the texture of the paper as well as the graphite that's been transferred over. I probably should have lifted a bit of that. In my very limited experience making pencil crayon illustrations, I have found that you should build your color slowly, because once the paper gets saturated, it's kind of like there's nowhere to go. And so if you want some, color variation as well within the mass of color, then you need to build that up gradually. The process is not unlike building washes with watercolor, but I would say it takes a whole lot longer. And in a different way, in the way that water is a variable with your wash, I would say pressure is a variable with your layers of color when you're using pencil crayon. If you're as impatient as I am, the process can be a little bit trying, but I would take your time if you're new to it and make sure you get to the color that you want before you start blending things together, because once you start blending things together, then it is harder to add new color to those areas. And I would say that these blend quite well, but you can't layer as much as you could with, say, a more professional brand, but you can get a lot out of them for sure. I decided to sharpen the pencils that I wanted to use for my line art, which were umbers and black, and they sharpened very well, came to a very sharp point, and they kept their point very long. So that's kind of nice. So they're soft, but they keep their sharpness for quite a long time. The only negative I would say is that the very tip often snaps off, but the lead is a little bit harder, I would say, than a Prismacolor, so it stays sharper longer. I was happily surprised at how much I could cover with my line work before I had to sharpen again, so that's great. And for me, that's a really big bonus because, as I mentioned before, I mostly draw with pencil crayons, so them staying sharper longer is like really appealing to me. The process that I've been using so far with my very few attempts at making pencil crayon art is to use a lighter color in the same kind of family to blend the areas of color together. Sometimes I'll pick something a little bit warmer, something a little bit cooler to adjust the color that way, and that seems to be working well. I'm not sure if that's what you're supposed to do, but that's what I've been doing. The process is actually very redundant. It's a lot of going back and forth, and then when you get to the saturation point, at least in my little method that I've uncovered, then I start blending the color mass together. By color mass, I mean an area of a single kind of color. So like the red area or the brown area, even though there's a little bit of variation in there, I try to blend it out and also like smooth it out so that you don't see as much of the texture of the paper. Once I got all the line work on there, I think it all came together. I'm just a line girl and I rely on line to do most of my heavy lifting, and I thought it came out pretty cute. I get annoyed when something that I transfer onto another paper doesn't quite have the same lines as the original. I don't know, the line is such a big variable for me, but I think I was able to make it as similar as possible, and the finished effect was quite nice. I enjoyed that. I think that in the future I'm going to try to lay down a watercolor wash first and then finish it with pencil crayon, but more with pencil crayon than with watercolor. In the past, I usually have used pencil crayon to finish my watercolor, and I kind of want to try the reverse. So use the watercolor to start my pencil crayon, if you know what I mean. Anyways, I'll try that in a future video. So I started coloring my photocopy paper, and it was all fun and stuff, but it actually takes quite a long time to finish coloring a picture with pencil crayons. So I'm not gonna bore you with all that, but I am curious if anybody would be interested in coloring pages. I'm toying with the idea of releasing some coloring pages and maybe making this whole campaign a bundle. Anyhow, maybe you'll see it listed in my store in the summer when I reopen. So I just wanted to show you a few examples of the way that I usually use pencil crayon. So it's usually for drawing, and I like kind of putting a variation of different colors in my line art, and I hope to give this a try with these pencil crayons as well. Don't forget to check the description box for any offers that might be available. Arrtx was kind enough to send me a few links, so don't forget to check that out. But my fondest memory of photocopy paper is in Spanish school on Saturdays. My parents would send us to Spanish classes on Saturdays, and I remember being, I don't know, around 7 years old, and my mom was frantic because I didn't know how to read Spanish. So I went to Spanish classes, and yeah, I learned to read in maybe 1 or 2 Saturdays, and I remember the story that I was given to read. It was about a little farm. La Granja Pequeña was the story, and I discovered that when you colored with colored pencil on the actual dark spots of the photocopy paper, you could cover it, and this seemed like magic to me. Anyhow, it's just one of those little memories of childhood unlocked, and it's funny how sometimes those things are so powerful, and just the texture and the way it looked, and yeah, I can remember the way it felt and everything. So I hope you found that helpful. If you are in the market for some colored pencils, I think that this is a really good option. I was happily impressed with the performance. They're very soft pencils. And if you're like me and living here in Canada, open stock pencils, like say a Prismacolor, which is the cheapest that you can get here, ranges from $2 to $3 a pencil, which is kind of crazy. So this is a really good value. And I think if you're starting out, they have a 72 box set and then a 126 box set. Thanks to Arrtx for reaching out. I was happy to try these pencils out, and I hope we'll do some more artwork with it in the future. So I'll see you at the next one, everyone. Bye now.